This is an SM Media production. Hi folks, and welcome to your Friday edition of Scottish Football Daily News. I'm Scott Pike. It's always a pleasure to be your host, and I'm coming to you at the end of the week. We're nearly there. We're nearly back to the domestic football action. We're close to getting there. Just a bit of news. Obviously, you'll have saw this morning that we are launching on Patreon. One of the kind of key parts of the channel on Patreon will be the daily Scottish Football News Show. This was a trial to see how it done on podcasts and how it did on YouTube. It's done really well on podcasts, so we are going to make it a key component. This is going to be one of the big things of the Patreon site. You're going to have a daily Scottish Football News Show that will drop. Any bits of news will be covered each day, Monday to Friday, and then on Saturday, Sunday, you've got a wee morning briefing before the weekend action. We've got a lot to talk about today. It's been quite a busy couple of days in the terms of the news. A lot kind of broke last night just as we were finishing up. We'll start with what looks to be a big bit of transfer news between two Italian clubs that seem to involve a Scottish player. It looks to be that Lewis Ferguson, obviously formerly of Aberdeen Scotland International, is gathering interest by Juventus. Surprisingly, obviously he's at Bologna now. He's making really good strides in Serie A. He's impressed this season for Bologna. He's probably become, I would say, just kind of watching them briefly, they're sitting eighth. They're sitting in 8th place. They're 3 points off the Champions League, and they're pushing for Europe. And Lewis Ferguson has been probably the best player. I mean, his contributions have been really good. One thing that will, if a team like Juventus, that would be a sensational move for him. That would just be. I would put him on the map. He's on the map already. He's gathering a lot of interest. But to go to a side like Juventus, I think would be sensational for him. Do you know what I mean? It'd be very well deserved. It shows as well, and we saw this with Aaron Hickey, going abroad for a Scottish player isn't, do you know what I mean? It's not been the it thing in recent years, but it can make all the impact. Like, Hickey obviously got a brilliant move to Brentford off the top of it, being at Bologna as well. Doige is doing really well over there. He's the one that's gathered the kind of interest in the likes of Inter Milan in recent years. So, I mean, those three guys are a perfect example. Going abroad, it can. Do you know what I mean? It's certainly probably one of the ways to go. Aberdeen, his former club, will be keeping an eye on any movements as they're entitled to a sell-on clause for the former youngster. Obviously, I don't know if Hamilton, who obviously came through in the youth team, I don't know if they get anything for him. I know they did when he went to Bologna, but I don't know if they've got any sell-ons. So I don't know how that works, but. Bologna currently value Lewis Ferguson at around about €20 million, and again, if he continues, he's 24. If he continues to do what he's doing, that might not be enough to get him. Do you know what I mean? If Juventus will usually do that. You will see that, like teams like Juventus, like Lazio, Napoli do it as well. If there's a player outside the kind of big clubs in Italy, they will sign them. Doesn't matter if they're, do you know what I mean? They will sign them just for the potential. Like we've seen it in recent years. Juventus, Dusan Vlahovic, been a big example. Like they will do it. Like obviously, there's a lot of players outside the big clubs in Italy that the likes of Juventus, the Milan sides, like Roma, Lazio, they will take a punt on them. Do you know what I mean? And there's very little risk in it, so it would be a brilliant move for Lewis Ferguson. And it would be something that would obviously generate a lot of excitement in Scotland. A bit of news come through today regarding VAR, and it seems to be a bit of a talking point that's generated a bit of interest. 3 decisions have been deemed incorrect by the SFA's VAR independent review panel in the first round of Premiership fixtures. The 3 decisions that were called out of the 407 checks that were made since the start of the season are a red card for Dundee's Josh Mulligan at home to Kilmarnock, and Dundee according to this, were hard done by for another goal against Livingston. They were both considered errors, and a double hit penalty from Aberdeen's Bojan Miovski should not have stood. This was made up of former players, managers and coaches, and was set up by the SFA for the first full campaign with VAR in place. The 12 Premiership clubs held a meeting with the SFA referees department on Thursday to review the performance of VAR. The video assistant referee, audio of conversations between match officials in the VAR control room were relayed, while explanations were given on how key incidents were dealt with. Again, this VAR it'll be the same old story. It'll just generate interest here and there. Again, these incidents that I can think of more than 3 that I thought were pretty wrong. Like, there's probably way more than 3. I think a lot of people will argue were wrong. But again, the thing with VAR is, and we're always going to look at it, it's going to be subjective. It's going to be, do you know what I mean? There's decisions that I'll think are ridiculous, but there's decisions where other people listening to this will be, no, that decision was fine. So again, but I kind of like the idea, and we said it yesterday, like, obviously the SFA are very congratulatory on the referees, and I mean they can't not be, but for 3 out of 407 decisions to be deemed wrong, still 3 decisions that are wrong, so it's not a foolproof system. So it's not flawless, but again, it's just going to generate a lot of talking points, and it's going to be something that'll keep an eye. But obviously VAR will be domestic action, we're back, so we might see more than 3 this weekend. It might be up this weekend. Another bit of transfer news that doesn't involve a Scottish player, but it might benefit a Scottish club. Former Rangers loanee Malik Tillman is reportedly closing in on a £12 million switch from Bayern Munich to PSV Eindhoven. If this deal was to go through, Rangers would profit from the transfer. Now, if you remember, during the summer, obviously Rangers were trying to sign Malik Tillman permanently, but I think, from what I understand, it was more player than team. He didn't want to go to Rangers on a permanent basis. But from according to this, Bayern did cancel a clause that was a kind of loan to buy option, and as a result of this, they agreed to wire Rangers $1 million plus a portion of any transfer fee in the future. My understanding is it was around 10%, so if this is obviously a $12 million deal, Rangers will be entitled to $1.2 million if this move's completed. He's done everything, he's done well so far in his time at PSV, 5 goals and 3 assists in 13 league games. Tillman was quoted in saying, "I have really enjoyed my time at PSV from day one. It was the right move for me after Rangers. The manager, the team and the attacking style of play suit me. We also play in the Champions League, and that was a very important condition for me, and we are also fighting for the title. That consistency requires a certain mindset. I want to develop further at PSV, and who knows what will be possible next. I don't know what will happen. That depends on PSV and Bayern." Obviously, this is something that is out with Rangers' control, but if he will move on for decent money. He's a good player. Do you know what I mean? He's a good player who's playing at a high level. We saw at Rangers as well. He is. Do you know what I mean? He is going to the top. I think he could be one of the best players. I think he could be one of the best players in like a side like PSV. Do you know what I mean? It could be. You could see him just kick on again. We saw at Rangers. He was a standout for Rangers last season. Let's be honest. He's going to go to the top. Whether he's going to be a world class player, I'm not sure, but he will go for big money. Do you know what I mean? He's got the experience. He's came for Bayern Munich. He's an American international. He's going to go to the top. I think he's a really good player, and Rangers will reap the benefits of it. 10%. I mean, it's 1.2 million. Do you know what I mean? It's like selling a player. It's like selling a player for a decent value. And again, he's not. Do you know what I mean? It's a loan that's what. Let's not kid ourselves. It was. Whether it was always destined to be a 1 year loan, I don't know, but obviously Rangers would have liked to have had him on a permanent basis, but I don't think Rangers would have been able to pay $12 million for him. So again, it has worked out to a degree. Rangers will get a benefit out of Malik Tillman if he moves on. Next bit of news, this is obviously something as well regarding a loanee. Dundee boss Tony Docherty has said that he would love to keep Amadou Bakayoko at the club on a permanent basis. The 27-year-old signed on loan from Forest Green after a January move from Bolton. He didn't obviously do well, but he has came here and he's been sensational. To be honest, he's been one of the big reasons that Dundee have been so good since the start of the season. Tony Docherty said that Baka has got every attribute. Technically, he's a very gifted player and he's a good finisher. His link-up play is fantastic as well. He just needed the platform, I think, and he needed the right people around him in terms of teammates and staff. He's now in a place where he feels he's loved. He's a brilliant boy around the place and he has good teammates. It could be made permanent in January. Obviously, it will depend on a fee, but again, if there's no future for him at Forest Green, they will look to bring in a decent bit of value for him, and that is obviously down to what can Dundee afford to play. It's one of those as well. He's 27. We saw the likes of Kevin Van Veen. If they do well in Scotland, you can make a good bit of money. I don't think the fee will be too bad, but it also depends if Dundee can afford it. But it's something to obviously keep an eye on. But as long as he keeps doing what he's doing from a loan, in his loan, he'll be fine. The Scottish Cup draw, the fourth round of the Scottish Cup draw will be made on Sportscene on Sunday night at 7:15. Obviously, this will be Premiership sides being added to it. Jonathan Sutherland will conduct the draw, the Sportscene presenter. He'll be joined by two Dundee United Cup winners, Craig Conway and Danny Swanson. So this will be third round ties will be played over the weekend. Obviously, I think there's 20 ties, a lot of good teams in it as well. So best of luck to everybody as well. That's going to be fascinating to see. Next bit of news, Ajax are understood to be close to bringing back to Holland Queen's Park Director of Football Marjan Breuker, and the Dutchman is expected to go to Ajax in a similar role. This is something that obviously I imagine compensation will be a big part here. I don't know enough. Ajax, I think it's clearly obvious. Ajax are a bit of a bin fire at the moment, to be honest. So they obviously see what Marjan Breuker is doing at Queen's Park. The thing is, he had a 10-year contract at Queen's Park, so whether that entitles him to a bit of compensation, I don't know. But it's Queen's Park are obviously a very, very ambitious club. It's understood that Breuker is expected to move back to Holland in the new year, so that's one to keep an eye on. I'd expect that to be finalised in the next couple of days. And that will do us for this episode of Scottish Football Daily News. I thank everyone for listening over the course of the week. It's obviously been good to give this show a trial and see that if there is an audience for it, there clearly is. So we will be back when we launch on Patreon next Friday, and thank you very much for everyone that's tuned in. Sign up to our Patreon site from Monday. You will get exclusive access, and for our big launch on Friday, we'll have some announcements over the next few days of what we plan in terms of new content, so stay tuned for that. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you soon. Cheers.